Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So today we're going to be doing a reaction video to TrueUnderDawgGaming's video regarding Tekken and Mortal Kombat. And it was kind of like a Tekken versus Mortal Kombat, which is better. And it was sent over to me this morning, and I was honestly flabbergasted by some of the things I was hearing in the video. Now, this isn't a hate video against TrueUnderDawgGaming. I have no ill will towards him at all. It's literally just a reaction video. I wanted to pick apart some of his points and some of his talking points regarding the video and how he presented it, and then give my thoughts on why I disagree with him and why I think his takes are not very fleshed out or well thought out. Like I said in the last video, there are going to be hidden Xbox Game Pass codes in this video, so look out for them. And if you are one of the people that is lucky enough to get them, send me a message or comment in the comment section below and let me know. I don't know who got them in the last video. So anyway, let's get on with the video.
I've been playing a ton of Tekken 8 lately, and since everyone online keeps comparing it to Mortal Kombat 1, I wanted to throw my own perspective into the ring. As somebody who's enjoyed both games for decades, I think my opinion carries at least some weight. Plus, if I'm being honest, most people online are way too hostile on this subject, and will completely tear your head off if you disagree with them on which game is better.
So I haven't really seen people being hostile when it comes to thinking about what game they think is better or agreeing or disagreeing. I think a lot of people are just really angry right now at the state of Mortal Kombat, and Tekken is the thing that was coming out after it, and so there's been a lot of contention within the two communities, and so I don't think that people are biting anyone's heads off for it. I mean, I've made a lot of videos on this channel critiquing Mortal Kombat and critiquing even the player base, and I haven't had that many people being negative, so I don't know about that one.
First off, we have to talk about gameplay, which is a bit unfair because no fighting game has ever had more depth than Tekken. Every character in this game has 100 attacks or more, and some characters have over 200 attacks to learn. And as a result, mastering even one character will take you a while, and I don't think anyone has had the time or patience to master every character on the roster. Or in other words, you won't get bored of playing this game because there's always more to learn. The characters are just that complicated.
Okay, so this is the first part of the video, and it's one of the parts that I don't really understand what he's getting at here. So in terms of gameplay, yes, Tekken offers the most in the gameplay, but it offers a very different style of gameplay to some of the other fighters on the market. So if we look at other fighting games like Street Fighter 6 or Dragon Ball FighterZ or Guilty Gear, they all offer something very different, and within their games you could say that they're quite rich with content and the way that you can play the games. And when I mean content, I mean within the actual fight. The reason that people are jumping ship from Mortal Kombat to Tekken is because Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't offer much of anything. Even within its own universe, it's very bland. It is, as they've said, as I've said multiple times, it's like a peeled onion. They have dumbed the game down so much in pursuit of trying to appeal to a more casual audience and drive more sales that there's actually nothing there. It's not unfair to bring up Tekken when you're talking about gameplay. It's just that Mortal Kombat doesn't offer anything. So if you talk about any fighting game, whether it be Dragon Ball FighterZ, whether it be Street Fighter 6, it really doesn't matter because all of them offer more than Mortal Kombat. Just because Tekken is the biggest fighting game doesn't mean it's going to appeal to everybody that plays them. For example, I've got a group chat of friends that only play Street Fighter. They are only interested in Street Fighter 6. Now, Street Fighter 6 offers much less than Tekken 8 in terms of what you can do in the actual game, but it offers something completely different, to the point that it doesn't actually matter that Tekken and Street Fighter are so different because the system in Street Fighter 6 offers enough for players to be happy and not want to move over. This is also partly why you see such a massive purge of the Mortal Kombat community and a lot of them uploading Tekken gameplay now and going over to Tekken, because Tekken was always going to be the fighting game that took from Mortal Kombat. It was never going to take from Street Fighter. The Street Fighter fan base is very established and they're quite happy with their game from a gameplay perspective. I know there's some issues, there's been talks about tick throws and whatnot, and there's definitely issues with microtransactions, but when I saw Tekken 8 coming out, I never thought to myself, oh, Street Fighter is going to suffer for this. Tekken and Street Fighter will always coexist and they will always do well. But Mortal Kombat sits in the middle, and I honestly think Tekken is the one that benefits from Mortal Kombat not doing so well. Also, on the point of not having the time or patience to master everyone on the roster, it's not that people don't have the time or patience, it's just that there's so much going on in this game that we're only a month into the game and there's no way that you're going to be able to master every character. We were 7 to 8 years into Tekken 7 and people were still learning stuff. That's one of Tekken's strong points. That can be a turn off for some people, and I can certainly see why, if you love Mortal Kombat 1, which can be literally basically learned in its entirety within 1 month. I can understand why seeing a game like Tekken would be a big turnoff, because there's just no way that you can learn everything in 1 month. It's actually not possible. Even if you were unemployed, living in your mum's basement, playing the game every day, it's just not possible to master everything because the game offers so much player expression. That point doesn't really make any sense. If the point is that you just want to play something where you can turn your brain off, then yeah, of course, Mortal Kombat 1, that's that game for you. They dumbed it down so far that anyone can play it. I can teach my mum how to do a combo and how to move around the game quite simply. There's so many things to learn in Tekken that's just not going to be the case.
However, with that said, the roster of Tekken 8 has always been a mixed bag. Some characters are really cool and interesting, like a cyber samurai or a leopard luchador, while other characters are just martial arts fighters, and that's it, which is completely fine for some people, but the contrast has always been funny to me. Some of these characters can use lightning, magic abilities, fly, and shoot laser beams, and then there's just the kickboxer, and that's all he does, he kicks and punches. Now, you could argue that characters like Ryu and Ken are also pretty bland because they're also martial artists, but at the same time they can shoot fireballs, do spinning hurricane kicks, insane dragon punch uppercuts. You get the idea, right? They're still pretty over the top despite being martial artists.
This point again, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm really confused. So because there's devils in the game, but then you have characters like Asuzena, that means that they're not interesting. What I think he's getting at here is the aesthetic. So when you look at Jin and Kazuya, they look like Shonen Jump anime characters. And then when you look at maybe someone like Asuzena or, I don't know, Dragunov, there's nothing supernatural going on with them. And so that turns him off from playing it, which that's like a subjective thing. I don't really care too much. It's the next point that he makes that really makes me scratch my head. So I'll let him make his point.
For me personally, I only like a few characters on the roster of Tekken 8, and the rest don't really interest me at all. But for Mortal Kombat 1, I wanted to learn every character at least a little bit, partly for my YouTube channel of course, but also because every character is supernatural in some way on top of being a martial artist. So even though Tekken 8 does have a bigger roster, a lot of the characters aren't very interesting in my opinion.
So TrueUnderDawg's idea of an interesting character is how they look, because surely it's not about gameplay. He's more interested in how the characters look supernatural wise, or if they look more human, and that's what turns him off them. He said earlier on that some characters just punch and kick, they're just kickboxers, which is really funny considering fighting games live and die by their gameplay. And the characters that he's referring to, for example, if we use a kickboxer like Fakuram or Bruce or Josie, their movesets are still more robust and more inspired than anything in Mortal Kombat. The Mortal Kombat characters, yeah, they may look cool. You may have a character that has a jaw hanging off his face and can rip his own limbs off, but the gameplay is so bland that it's actually in Mortal Kombat where all they do is punch and kick. I mean, look at Scorpion, a guy that can use Hellfire and a guy that has all of these ninja weapons, and look how boring his gameplay is. There's no character that is as boring as Scorpion in Tekken, for example, and that is not even down to the fact that there's more moves in this. It's just that you have all these characters with supernatural abilities. They look cool, like the characters physically look cool, and then when you go to play them, it's like, oh, there's not really much going on here. So I don't really understand the point that he's getting at here. Yeah, there may be characters like Lily who have no powers, but Lily's ballerina moveset is way more interesting, and there's way more to do and learn than anything in Mortal Kombat. If you even take Tekken and you remove it and go to Street Fighter, you've got a character like Manon, who is another ballerina. Her moveset is way more interesting than 90% of the things you get in Mortal Kombat. They may get more interesting as DLC comes out, but the base roster really had uninspired movesets. They were very boring. I mean, they gutted Scorpion. Scorpion may be usable. He may be usable to a level where you can win matches, but is he boring in Mortal Kombat 1? Yes. As a matter of fact, all of the characters are boring. One of the criticisms that people have for Mortal Kombat 1 is that it's literally a peeled onion. This point makes no sense. I mean, TrueUnderDawgGaming is a veteran fighting game player, so how can he base his liking of characters just on how they look? That makes no sense to me. Wouldn't it be that, okay, this character doesn't look that cool, but when I pick them, there's so much to learn here. They're very, very inspired. Their fighting style is very representative of the fighting style they might have pulled it from, or they came up with something quirky and that we've never seen before.
Plus, on top of that, the game is very tough for new players. Not just because mastering one character is difficult, but because the opponent's character also has hundreds of attacks to watch out for and memorize. And even though Tekken 8 does have a simple controls option, that's not going to help you very much with defense. If your opponent has any experience at all, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Not to mention the movement is much harder in Tekken games, and you absolutely need to learn the frame data. It's not optional. You have to learn the frame data in this game. The best punishes, you get the idea, right?
Well, that's just not true. Now, I can tell you as somebody that knows more about Tekken than TrueUnderDawgGaming, and I don't mean that in an offensive way, it's just it doesn't sound like he knows much about Tekken. You don't have to learn the frame data. I'll give you guys like a little insight on like some of the best UK players. I'll give you one for example. My friend Lionel, who was a very, very high level Tekken 6 player and Tekken Tag 2 player, and he's still at a very high level now even though he's not competing on the circuit, told me that he never learned the frame data, that he played off feel. I can tell you guys that I do not know the frame data for most characters in this game. I have learned to play the game and punish things visually. If I want to progress to the higher levels, yeah, I have to learn the frame data. I already understand that. But I'm already at a Raijing rank, for example, now. I can guarantee you that by the end of this month, maybe some point in March, I'll be at Tekken Emperor or Tekken King, whatever it's called. I can play with people that are competent on Tekken without knowing the frame data by just learning things visually. So you don't have to learn it. That is not true. You can go into Tekken, you can learn your character, and then you can learn things over time. You can say, oh, okay, that animation looks a bit high, and then you duck. There's a lot of visual indicators in Tekken. So if you want to progress to the higher levels and you want to be playing with the King Jays, or you want to be playing with the Arslan Ashes or the main mans, then yes, you're going to have to learn frame data and you're going to have to take it to the next level. But that's at a very high level. If you want to compete at a beginner to intermediate level, there is no need for you to learn frame data. You will pick it up visually. If I can do it, and trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. So that point is completely moot. Also, on the point of this game being very difficult, yes, Tekken is a very difficult fighting game, but you can also have a lot of fun of it at a lower level. You do have to learn some systems. I've seen some YouTubers who just do not want to learn how to get up off the ground. They don't want to learn how to punish things, and they don't understand how the combo system works, and so it becomes frustrating. So yes, you will have to learn some things if you want to be somewhat competent at the game, but there's also a bunch of training features in this game that literally hold your hand. As long as you can read, and as long as you have hands to pick up the controller, you can learn how to do it. There's also the replay feature. If there is something in the game that you don't understand, I've given you guys the example before. If you go up against a character like I do with Leo, where I just do not understand what Leo is doing, and so they basically run a train on me, I go into the replay feature, I'm like, okay, cool, this thing is launch punishable, this thing is a high, this thing is a mid, I can parry in between here, I can use my armor crush in between here. And so the game literally holds your hand. There's really no excuse for you to not understand how to play the game. Now, you don't have to use those features if you don't want to, but it's disingenuous to tell people they need to know frame data and that it's so punishing that they're not going to be able to learn all the characters' moves and whatnot. That's simply not the case. You can just go into Tekken, go into ranked, take your licks and just pay attention, and eventually you'll get things. A good example of something that I learned without even going into practice mode is I was really struggling with Dragunov, and I was thinking to myself, Dragunov seems like such an overwhelming character, like I don't know when it's my turn. Until I was like, okay, let me try something else mid-game, and I realized that his forward 2, which is that running punch he does that pisses everyone off, it's also one of his heat smash, you just sidestep it, and he's so open, he literally gives you his back, and you can basically kill him. Sometimes things seem overwhelming in Tekken, but there's actually very easy options around it. There's a lot of time and patience that needs to be put into some things, and some things you can learn visually. So on that point, TrueUnderDawg, you're completely wrong on that.
Plus, there's also a dozen different wake-up options too that you have to learn how to implement correctly without getting bodied online. In summary, Tekken 8 is a very complicated game, and the simple inputs option is not going to change very much. And as a result, I sadly do think that tons of players are going to drop this game after a week or two simply because they just keep losing over and over again. The game is really hard to master.
Well, I mean, it's been over a month since the game has been out now. It's coming up to a month, I think, actually. I think we're 6 days away from a month, and the game's popularity is only growing. The sales are continuing to grow. It's actually creeping up to Mortal Kombat in sales, which is hilarious, because the one thing that Mortal Kombat diehards would say is that, well, it still sells more than this, and actually, if we take a look at it now, it's on course to lose to Tekken 8. Tekken 8 has sold 2 million copies in 3 weeks. So even that's being taken away from Mortal Kombat as well. That would really be an indicator if I was over at NRS and WB to pull my finger out of my bum and start getting my act together. In terms of people leaving the game, that's just not true. Tekken 7 was also a very difficult fighting game with a lot of different mechanics and different inputs that were difficult, some more difficult than Tekken 8. Tekken 8 has its own complexities, and the player base continued to grow on that. Tekken 7 was really the fighting game to watch last generation. For me, when I would look at Twitch numbers, it would always be Tekken 7 and Dragon Dragon Ball Fighters, and there were a couple other ones here and there. And Tekken 8, whilst it is as complex, if not more complex than Tekken 7, the player base has not fallen off. It has only continued to grow because they've given people content and they've given people a very rich fighting game where they're like, oh man, I lost this match, but there's so much going on here, let me try something else. And that's just not the case with Mortal Kombat. What's the case with Mortal Kombat is that it's actually lost its player base. You know that and I know that. There's no real way to cap about that. There's no way to lie about that. We can all see the Twitch numbers, we see the YouTube numbers, and we see the sales slowly starting to dwindle off. In no universe did I ever think Tekken was going to overtake Mortal Kombat in sales, but here we are, and it's well on its way. If you don't think Tekken's going to overtake Mortal Kombat at this point, then I don't know what you're smoking. So no, on that point, people are not going to drop the game. People are going to continue playing it because, again, the game holds your hands. It offers you a lot to learn, and it also offers you a lot of systems in place to learn those mechanics. It doesn't just leave you high and dry.
If you prefer a longer story that's less straightforward and focuses on more than 2 characters, then Mortal Kombat 1 has the better story. However, if you really love the Mishima family and don't mind a short story mode, then Tekken 8 is the winner. I personally think they're both pretty good, but Tekken 8 was pretty cliche, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't know, I was kinda hoping at one point the game would surprise me.
Yeah, I was kinda hoping that Mortal Kombat would surprise me as well, but once again they went down the Marvel Cinematic Universe route and they reset everything. And then at the end of it, me thinking that we're gonna get our own contained universe, what did they do? They did another Armageddon event. You see, the Tekken 8 story is very much in line with shonen manga. If you've played the Tekken 8 story now, then you know that it has a very shonen-like feel to it, which for some people will turn them off. For me, I absolutely love it. I love the shonen formula. The shonen formula has always worked for me. I know battle manga is not always for people, but this was the natural conclusion of Tekken. After what happened in Tekken 7 with Kazuya and Heihachi, it was only going to go this way. And to be honest with you, if they spent too much time focusing on other characters when we are at the climax of the Mishima story, I would have been a bit let down. Now, they didn't make this an 8-hour story mode. It was 3 to 4 hours. I think 3 hours, maybe pushing 3.5, and it felt like, okay, they got everything in here that I needed to see, and the climax was epic. Like, it was really, really cool. It made sense, and it kind of left us on a cliffhanger, like we don't know whose is the true ending. And with Mortal Kombat 1, up until chapter 10, I think, it was going okay. Like, I was like, okay, cool. They've got a self-contained story here. They've kind of been lazy with some of the changes. Nitara's inclusion was very, very disappointing, and some people seem like cannon fodder, but it's fine because they're not the main characters, so whatever. And then you get to chapter 10 and they bring in this whole multiverse garbage, and you're like, are you kidding me? Again, how am I supposed to invest into a timeline when you just kept messing with it? It's such a cop-out. Like, you kill characters in one timeline and then you bring them in from other timelines, and it's like, well, I can't be attached to the character. Like, it doesn't really matter. You're just going to replace them with another version of themselves. So the story in Mortal Kombat 1 is just a letdown. There's no two ways about it. Almost everybody that I've seen, both from the Mortal Kombat fanbase, Tekken and Street Fighter, have said, yes, the Tekken 8 story mode was brilliant. It wasn't long, it wasn't overbearing, it got to the point, and its natural conclusion was fantastic. And that is the sentiment that has been shared across all communities. So in terms of story, I'm sorry. I know Mortal Kombat tries to come across like a Netflix film, and it missed the mark completely. Having all of that pretty graphics and a long drawn out story mode really means nothing when the ending is a cop-out.
After beating story mode, there's a couple more modes to keep you distracted, like the arcade quest, where you roleplay as a regular arcade gamer going through his journey to become a professional player. And at first I thought this game mode was quite charming, but to be completely honest, after about an hour of playing, I left the game mode and I haven't gone back since. Maybe if the characters looked like real people instead of Wii avatars, I'd be a bit more invested, but the whole thing just feels a bit too cute for Tekken, in my honest opinion. But then again, I'm a veteran Tekken fan, so I remember back when the game was dark and edgy.
Okay, well, I think TrueUnderDawg missed the point of Arcade Quest. Now, I haven't spent much time in Arcade Quest. I have played it. I do appreciate it for what it is. But guess what? A lot of friends that I have and family members have played Arcade Quest, and it's their favorite mode. Arcade Quest was created for people that are not Tekken veterans. You said it there yourself, you're a Tekken veteran, so of course Arcade Quest is not going to be for you. It's going to be for the people that are coming into Tekken for the first time, that would like their hands to be held and guided through the game so that they can learn the game in a efficient manner where they don't feel like they're being destroyed online by people like me or people like you or whoever it might be. And so Arcade Quest's intended audience is not you. It worked for the people that it was meant to work for. And that's something that Tekken has needed for a long time, because because one of the biggest criticisms of Tekken has always been the game's very flashy, it looks very cool, the characters are very cool, but there's too much to learn, we don't know what is going on. And so they implemented a mode for people like my friend, or people like my mum, who for example might want to jump on Tekken one day, or people like your Tom, Dick and Harry's, like, I just want to try the game out, I want to see what it's all about. Arcade Quest is for those people, it's not for you. And so that's why they made it look a bit cutesy and inviting, because if you make it dark and edgy, it's going to be for us, it's going to be for the Tekken diehards, it's not going to be for the people that want to try out for the first time. If I put my little cousin on this game and she sees the cutesy avatar, she's going to be like, oh, I want to try that part. So those are the people that it was for, it was not intended for you. There are plenty of other things in Tekken 8 for you to do.
I still think it's cool that Bandai Namco tried something different with this new game mode, but at the same time, I hope Arcade Quest is a one-off. I don't want this mode to return for Tekken 9.
I would like to see an expansion of Arcade Quest, so I'd like to see it go into its natural evolution. So you've brought in all these new players, the game's selling very, very well. What are we going to do next? We can't do another Arcade Quest, or if you do an Arcade Quest 2, it has to evolve, it has to be something different. So I don't mind the mode coming back as long as they change things up and they add new things in for new players to try out, because you best believe Tekken 8 is extremely popular, but there's still millions of people that are not playing Tekken. There's still loads of people to introduce it to, so they could take from Arcade Quest and learn from it and see how well it was received, or if it was received negatively. From what I've seen, people are quite happy with it and they can build upon that.
Then once you finish that, there's Tekken Ball, which is very silly and honestly quite enjoyable, but it gets old pretty fast too. It definitely feels like the game mode you play when your girlfriend comes over and she wants to play Tekken 2 but doesn't want to learn the game. And of course it's also a fun reference to the classic games because they had Tekken Ball too, but honestly I feel like any other game mode could have been better, like Tekken Force. Maybe everyone wants Tekken Force, Bandai Namco, where is it? No, the story mode mission doesn't count. We want a full game mode of Tekken Force. Why is it Tekken Ball and not that? It's a cute reference, fun throwback, but come on, you know what we really want.
Okay, well this is a load of cap. So yeah, people do want Tekken Force, that's true, but people were asking for Tekken Ball. I remember this was one of the most requested modes. As a matter of fact, Harada ran a poll on Twitter and Tekken Ball was the most requested. Yes, people do want Tekken Force. It would be lovely to have another Tekken Force mode. We did get it in the story mode. Even though it was short, it was implemented very well. And that could have been a way to see if people actually wanted the game mode back for real, because sometimes people say they want things and then they're not willing to pay for it. We saw Tekken Bowl in Tekken 7. People weren't really too chuffed with paying for that. So maybe it's not a mode you pay for. Maybe Tekken Bowl is offered at a discounted rate, or it's just offered in the game for free. So Tekken Ball, I don't think people would have paid for Tekken Ball, but I'm more than happy to have it in there for free. And yes, it is for your girlfriend who comes over, who's like, oh, let's play some Tekken Ball together. Like, that's the value that Tekken offers you. That's not something you get in Mortal Kombat. Now, this is meant to be a Mortal Kombat versus Tekken game. All I've heard you doing is criticizing Tekken, but you haven't really been bringing up the fact that Mortal Kombat doesn't even have a mode for your girlfriend to come over and play. It doesn't have a mode for you to goof around on with your friends. You have invasions, so if you're into like rage rooms and wanting to smash up your controller, then yeah, invasions is there. Your video is called Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8, and so far it just sounds like you're kind of hating on Tekken 8. You're well within your right to have your opinion, of course, but I understand why you're not really talking about Mortal Kombat 1 here, because there's nothing to actually compare it to. In terms of offline content, there's no Arcade Quest equivalent, there's no Tekken Ball, there's no Tekken Lounge, there's no character customization really. I mean, we're not going to count what Mortal Kombat 1 has got, because that is absolutely shambolic on every metric. There's no jukebox mode, there's a barely working online, but anyway, I'll let him finish his points.
So far, the developers haven't said anything about a story expansion or any new game modes getting added to the game either, which means after about a week, you're going to be left with online, and that's pretty much it. But that could be okay, because as mentioned earlier, this game has a lot of depth. So if you love learning new characters and struggling online to get better, then Tekken 8's never going to get dull for you.
Now again, this is a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 video, so okay, let's go with the notion that all you're going to be left with is the actual fighting game itself and online. Okay, cool. Well, let's take a look at Mortal Kombat 1 and what you're left with. You're left with the online and the actual fighting game. Now, which one offers you a more rich experience? Tekken 8. Which one actually works? Tekken 8. Which one actually has modes within the online that are fully operational? Tekken 8. Which one has more modes when you get online? Tekken 8. Right, so if this is a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 video, who are you giving the point there to exactly? I'm confused.
But at the same time, don't expect any new content coming anytime soon. But alright, now it's time for a rant. And I mean a real rant.
Before he gets on to his rant, I just want to say, like he said, don't expect any new content coming soon. Now, Tekken have outlined that there is going to be content coming for the game in way of characters, which is really what people are interested in right now. Again, because the base model was so good, now we just want characters and potentially stages added on top. I'd love to get an Eddie Gordo stage, a recreation of the Tekken 3 stage. That would be amazing. But again, this is a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 video, so if we are to compare, the content in Mortal Kombat 1 has been absolutely diabolical, and just no way that you can compare anything to what has happened with Mortal Kombat 1. On top of that, it wasn't even working to begin with, and then the content that is supposed to be coming out has not shown up yet. I'm sorry, where's Peacemaker? We were still waiting for Peacemaker.
I'm a big fan of Tekken, including the lore, and the arcade endings in this game are absolutely awful. They might look pretty, but they are utterly pointless and even insulting depending on the character you like. Literally none of these endings develop the character at all, plus they aren't even canon either.
Now he says that the endings in Tekken 8 are not canon, which I think is a bit of a weird point to bring up, because we don't even know if the Mortal Kombat 1 endings are actually canon. And the reason I say that is because there's been no Mortal Kombat 2, and also even if there was canon endings in the Mortal Kombat 1 tower mode, does it really matter, since all NRS seem to be interested in doing is resetting the timelines? How am I supposed to invest in any of these characters if every time they bring out a new game, they reset the timeline? They just did another Armageddon event in Mortal Kombat 1, another one. So the timeline resets at the end of Armageddon. We go into Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat 2011, whatever you want to call it. Then by MK11, they reset again. And then in MK1, they reset the timeline. And then they bring back the old timeline. How am I supposed to be invested in any of these characters when all NRS does is continuously reset the timeline? Now, yeah, I will admit, Tekken 8 could have done with more serious endings, sure. But do you know what? At least we got animated endings. The lazy people over at WB and NRS give us these still comic book drawings over and over again. I want to see something animated. At least I laughed at some of the Tekken 8 endings. At least some of them were charming and endearing. Insulting is a bit of a stretch. I would say it's insulting to continuously make out like your fighting game is the Netflix of fighting games and it's the big movie and you reset the timeline constantly. I think everybody is sick of the MCU style storytelling. None of us want to see it anymore. Now Mortal Kombat 2 may come out and they may continue the story, although after the reception that Mortal Kombat 1 received, I really wouldn't be surprised if they bring it out and it's another reset.
Instead, most of these endings are just really dumb jokes at the expense of your character. Or worse, they're a complete repeat of the past games. Ah yes, I love watching Asuka and Lily fight over nothing for the 50th time. It never gets old. I also love watching Yoshimitsu fight Brian for the 100th time. I love watching Paul be a joke character despite being as strong as Kazuya without his devil powers. And haha, it's so funny to just keep crapping on Law, the Bruce Lee character. I can't believe I'm saying this right now, but Tekken Tag Tournament 2 somehow has better arcade endings, and none of them were canon either, but at least they had heart. They made you feel something. Xiao Yu taking all of her friends to a theme park to enjoy a great day is far more interesting than her lusting after Jen for the billionth time.
Look, not liking certain character endings is obviously subjective. It's just I find this hard to take serious when the Mortal Kombat endings always come across as super serious, but they don't actually carry over. They've said this for a long time. If you even look at Mortal Kombat 11, do you remember that stupid ending with Jax, where basically he turned Earth into Wakanda and the black struggle had ended and whatnot? Was that canon? There's so many endings in Mortal Kombat that are not canon. I don't know what is going on about here. And there's no way to really know if Mortal Kombat 1 has any canon endings yet. We don't actually know. We're not going to know until the next game. They might say that, but they could very easily go in and retcon it. I mean, that's what NRS are famous for at this point. They continuously retcon their stories.
And honestly, I could think of a dozen more examples. You get the idea though. These arcade endings are a complete waste of time and even insulting if you expected any story progression for your character at all. I know for some people this might not seem like a big deal, but you have to understand this series has been spinning its wheels in the mud for over 4 games now. Literally nothing has happened to most of the characters for 4 games straight, and it's getting really annoying. It's like having your flight delayed at the airport, but you're already inside the plane and you're just sitting there without Wi-Fi. That's what this feels like, to have these endings be so dumb for 4 games straight.
Okay, well, since this was supposed to be a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 video, I'll do you the favor of comparing it to Mortal Kombat 1 since you just seem to be ranting on Tekken 8. So in the Mortal Kombat 1 endings, they always come across, like I said, super serious, like there's progression and whatnot. And then you get to the next game and none of those things have happened. If you go from Mortal Kombat 9 to Mortal Kombat 10, can you tell me exactly where every single ending perfectly lined up with the next game? Even with Mortal Kombat 11, doesn't really matter with Mortal Kombat 11 because they retconned the universe anyway, so none of that was going anywhere. And with Mortal Kombat 1, a lot of the endings again are uninspired and boring. And to top it all off, even if you liked the story direction they were going in, they're so lazy because they don't even bother to animate them properly. I go through a tower which is already a mindless dribble, and I get to the ending and you give me this comic book strip. They've been doing this for how long now? Even in Armageddon, do you guys remember that boring sequence at the end of Armageddon where you're listening to the narrator talk about the character and they're going on and on? The character's just there doing some bullshit though, like some bullshit martial art. MK1 character endings have been a joke for a very long time now. I could excuse them if they gave us like flashy cutscenes and we get a big fight sequence, but we don't even get that. Now what I would actually like to see is that even though Mortal Kombat 1 messed up with its universe reset, I would like them to actually progress the story. So for example, General Shao's ending, he starts waging war in Outworld and he starts recruiting people, and I guess that's going to lead into the Mortal Kombat 2 story. So let's actually see if NRS follows through on anything. Now for me, I don't really mind the character endings in Tekken 8. I do wish that someone like Paul had a more serious dark tone. I do wish that the gag with martial law ended now. It's getting a bit redundant. But there's some really nice endings, you know, they're a bit goofy, but there are some cool endings and they're animated very well. But because they gave me a whole story mode where the actual canon events take place, I don't really mind too much. It doesn't bother me too much that there's a lot of jokey endings. Again, Tekken's story has always come across like a shonen story to me, where it's got the very serious side and a very goofy side. Now, of course, that is subjective, but my problem with Mortal Kombat and the comparison is always going to be is that they don't follow through with anything in Mortal Kombat. Every single time you feel like something is going somewhere, they reset the universe. Or instead of having a self-contained story, they have an Armageddon event where you've got Shao Scorpion or Liu Kung Lao or some weird mix of Johnny and Sonya, and it's just like, what lazy bullshit is this? So I'm hoping that Mortal Kombat 2 doesn't have a lazy story mode like that. But comparing the two for me doesn't really make sense because we had a fitting conclusion to the end of Tekken 8 and we didn't get one for Mortal Kombat 1. A lot of people were disappointed with how Mortal Kombat 1 ended, and if you went past credits, then you saw that there was like an Elseworld Havoc and some other people that had descended upon that timeline. And so I don't even know if we're going to get a self-contained story because it ended on a cliffhanger like they were also going to wage war. This whole multiverse shit in Mortal Kombat is just so boring and it's so lame. They keep killing people and then bringing them in from other universes and then resetting, and it's just like, alright, I don't care anymore. How can you care?
I understand that Mortal Kombat 1 has problems. It's nowhere near a perfect game, but at least the arcade endings are canon and also move the plot forward.
Well, again, we don't know if they're going to move the plot forward because NRS has a habit of resetting it.
It's not just Kung Lao falling asleep on the toilet and then daydreaming about Raiden's sister, or Melina going to a party with the same dress as Kitana and then starting a fight over it. In the Mortal Kombat 1 endings, things actually happen, interesting things that I can't wait to see explored in the next game. But for Tekken 8, we get none of that. We just get really shallow jokes.
Well, what's going to be explored in Tekken 8 is Reina's devil form and whether Kazuya had the true ending or if Jin had the true ending. Now, I would lean towards Jin just because he's the hero, and if we go with Kazuya's ending, then Kazuya's obviously going to have killed Jin because he throws him off the cliff at the end. And so when you finish Jun's story, her character stories, then you find out that the person that appeared before Kazuya's limp body was Jun. So the story progression is there in the main story mode. I have an idea of where they're probably going to take it. Reina is the new devil now. Kazuya's lost his devil abilities. Jin has lost his devil abilities. Reina has a beef with Kazuya. I don't think Jin killed Kazuya. I think he just collapsed from the fight. I think Jin is going to come and try to talk to Kazuya and reason with him. And then it's going to be Kazuya and Jin versus Reina because she's the only one with the devil. That's where it's looking like it's going to me, which is actually quite interesting because we've never seen Jin and Kazuya team up and fight each other. The only time we really saw Mishima's team up canon-wise is when Heihachi and Kazuya were fighting their way out of the onslaught of Jacks that were coming towards them, and that was very short-lived because Kazuya betrayed him. So if they do a tag team Mishima thing where they're fighting Reina, I think that would be really, really cool. In terms of like character stories, yeah, Tekken has jokey character stories, and they don't really push the plot forward because they always tend to make a laughing stock out of characters like Paul and whatnot. You have some characters like Feng Wei where their stories are sometimes pushed forward. I think because of Feng Wei's rage arc, for example, I think he did actually obtain the Dragon Scroll. I think he did actually get stronger because Leroy acknowledges him as being stronger than when they last met. right? So there are little things here and there, but people's main focus with Tekken has always been around the Mishimas. And that might sound like a cop-out, and maybe it is. I definitely think they can do more with the characters, but unfortunately, because this is a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 story, I would still take Tekken 8 story over Mortal Kombat 1's. I mean, that's the point of his video. The problem with Mortal Kombat 1 is that they've just copied the MCU, they've done a worse job of it, I can't get invested in it anymore, and it seems like very, very lazy ways to handle characters.
Mind, it's been over 10 years since anything interesting has happened to most of the characters in the Tekken 8 roster, and I'm getting tired of it. I understand if joke characters have joke endings, but why does every single character have to have a joke ending? What is going on? Believe it or not, Tekken 8 used to be a serious series, and I'm not joking. This game had the main character tossing his dad off a cliff.
Well, I mean, they still have people tossing people off cliffs. At the end of the day, the fact that this is the rant that he's gone into as to why he would put Mortal Kombat 1 over Tekken 8 is really laughable. I mean, you called your video Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8, so you're doing a which is better. It's literally in the title of your video. And if this is the rant that you're going into, then honestly, it really says everything that it needs to say about Mortal Kombat and the sorry state that it's in. That we're talking about arcade ladder canonical endings in a fighting game. There's so little to talk about with Mortal Kombat that not only did my man not bring up any real comparisons other than just dogging on Tekken 8, but now he's talking about character endings. Oh boy.
It was dark, it was edgy, violent, all that cool stuff. The endings actually made you think and meant something for the overall plot, but lately, just nothing happens. So when it comes to arcade endings, Tekken 8 absolutely takes the L on this one.
I would still be inclined to disagree. Unfortunately, I just can't get invested in the Mortal Kombat story anymore because they keep on resetting it. So no, I would rather have them make me laugh, considering they gave me a full story mode where there was a lot of gasps and oh my god moments and there was an epic shonen ending, than the nonsense in Mortal Kombat 1. I mean, first of all, in Mortal Kombat 1, we don't even really know who it is that is fighting with Liu Kang at the end. They leave you to choose, so you don't actually even know who the canonical warrior is at the end with Liu Kang. And then on top of that, everybody's fighting different versions of themselves or other characters from other worlds, so we don't actually even know what is canon and what isn't, who survived that and who didn't. We don't know if we're going to get a self-contained story in Mortal Kombat 2 or if it's going to be more Elseworld bullshit because Havoc is right at the end. There's probably going to be DLC content to wrap up this, and honestly, that would probably be the best thing that they could do because I do not want to see Mortal Kombat 2 as another multiverse game. It's so annoying. So no, Mortal Kombat 1 100% takes the L on that just for their inconsistency.
They are so disappointing, but hey, the gameplay is still amazing, and for some people, that's all that matters. You're going to be playing Tekken 8 for many months because it's that complicated, and the new attacks, heat mechanic, all that awesome stuff makes the game enjoyable even for long-time veterans. A lot of people online claim that Tekken 8 is going to kill Mortal Kombat 1, but honestly, I'd be shocked if most Mortal Kombat players even enjoy the Tekken series.
First of all, Tekken 8 is not going to kill Mortal Kombat 1 because Mortal Kombat 1 did a perfect job killing itself. Secondly, have you checked your comment section? I mean, if you haven't checked your own comment section, I would advise you checking it or even check mine. Most people that used to come into my channel were Mortal Kombat players. Most people in my Discord were Mortal Kombat players. There's almost 500 people in the Iron Fist Asylum right now who have moved over from Mortal Kombat to Tekken or are new to the series. It's quite weird to think that Mortal Kombat players wouldn't enjoy Tekken. I don't really understand why not. I mean, in terms of combo systems, they're not too different when you really boil it down to its core. It's a lot of dialer combos. It's not like Street Fighter. And so it would be an easier transition in my mind, at least it was for me as someone that is a Mortal Kombat player, to go over to Tekken and have a good time on it. So no, I don't think Tekken is going to kill Mortal Kombat. I definitely think it's going to stomp on it, but Mortal Kombat had already killed itself. It was a corpse by the time Tekken got there. It did the job for itself. A harakiri.
I mean, I definitely do, but keep in mind, I've been playing fighting games my whole life, and Mortal Kombat was never my first fighting game or my favorite fighting game either. I've said multiple times that Tekken is my favorite series. And honestly, I think Tekken 8 is way more likely to steal players from Street Fighter 6 instead of Mortal Kombat 1 because they're both Japanese fighting games.
Well, I mean, the Twitch numbers and the YouTube numbers should tell you otherwise. Street Fighter was not going to lose players to Tekken because Street Fighter provided them with a product that they could be happy with. Do they have gripes with Street Fighter 6? Definitely. Are the gripes on the level of Mortal Kombat? Absolutely not. And them being a Japanese fighting game doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter to people because we play Japanese fighting games over here all the time. they're very popular over here. Mortal Kombat's not popular over there, but over here that's not the case. Tekken was never going to take from Street Fighter because they provide them with a good product. Like I said, there was no good product provided to the NRS players. They were given dog shit. And so when you look at a lot of NRS channels, much like your own, they're playing Tekken now. A lot of them are playing Tekken. Sonic Fox is playing Tekken. Foxy Grandpa is playing Tekken. You are playing Tekken. I am playing Tekken. The list goes on and on. Ninja Killer is playing Tekken. The migration has been from Mortal Kombat players, and it has also been from Mortal Kombat casuals. I can tell you myself that a lot of my friends that played Mortal Kombat on a casual level are all playing Tekken. A lot of my group chats have been renamed Tekken group chats. The Iron Fist Asylum, my Discord, has almost 500 people in there. They have switched over from Tekken. I have not seen any of the Street Fighter diehards. I have not seen any of the Street Fighter casuals that I speak to personally move over to Tekken as their main game. So you're completely wrong on that. I would advise checking your comment section. I would advise checking the YouTube metrics. I would advise going on Twitch and looking what's going on. And I would even advise looking at the sales and people that are playing the game. Street Fighter's numbers are still up. Tekken's numbers are still up, but Mortal Kombat's are down. So what does that tell you?
Plus, they also had a crossover game in the past, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and that likely only happened because the developers realized, hey, our players enjoy both games, let's combine them together. But there's never been a Mortal Kombat Cross Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat Cross Tekken, so I don't think either of those games are gonna steal very many players.
That's not the reason that there was a crossover. The reason that there was a crossover is that Japanese developers have a much easier time working with each other than working with developers overseas. Also, the characters of Street Fighter and Tekken are very popular in Japan, so whilst the player bases may not necessarily cross over, they're very well aware of each other, and the conversations of like Jin versus Ryu have always come up, and so it was natural for them to do a crossover, not because the players were playing the games themselves, but because it made sense. They're both Japanese games, and both character types are very, very well recognized. Also, Mortal Kombat is an extremely violent and gory game, and I don't think the Japanese developers want their characters being decapitated. So those are the two main reasons. Also, I just think the demand to see those two cross over and fight has always been there. The demand has been there for Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, but there's so many hurdles for Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter to overcome to make a game like that. And honestly, I think that the Mortal Kombat developers would have to concede and have it go into the Japanese style. I don't think Street Fighter is going to be happy to give their characters over to NRS to have them decapitated. It just doesn't make any sense. And to be honest with you, after everything that Mortal Kombat has been through recently, I don't really want to see a Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat anymore. I've lost interest. I would rather see Tekken versus Street Fighter.
No matter what the case may be, I'm going to keep playing Tekken 8 because it's a very enjoyable game, and I'm going to keep uploading Tekken 8 videos to my YouTube channel along with the Mortal Kombat 1 content. I really don't understand why people online keep trying to throw these games against each other. You can enjoy both of them, or at least that's my opinion.
You can enjoy both of them, but the reason that people are throwing Tekken and Mortal Kombat against each other is that despite what you might think, there's a lot of crossover between Mortal Kombat and Tekken players, and there always has been. I've always seen it for myself, especially somebody that grew up playing Mortal Kombat. My other fighting game was always Tekken or Soul Calibur. It was never Street Fighter. Street Fighter was just sort of there on the side because some of my friends played it. So that's why they're comparing them a lot. For somebody that's been on YouTube for a long time, for somebody that's been playing fighting games for a long time, I'm a bit perplexed that you weren't able to pick up on that. But you can enjoy both. There's not to say that you can't. It's just when you compare them and when you make a video like this comparing them, but you're only really talking about one game, it makes no sense. So if we talk about Mortal Kombat gameplay versus Tekken gameplay, there's no comparison. Because even if you take away the fact that there's a lot more to do in Tekken, the systems and the content that is offered within the gameplay of Mortal Kombat is basically not there. It's completely lacking. It's a peeled onion, as we said. If you look at the offline content, there's no comparison. Tekken absolutely blows out of the water. If you look at player expression, Tekken blows out of the water. Tekken also offers you options to relive music from past games. Mortal Kombat doesn't do that. It gives you a good character customization unit. Mortal Kombat doesn't do that. It gives you an online mode that is fully operational and has quite a few modes within it. Mortal Kombat doesn't do that. It gives you gameplay that is not rife with glitches. Mortal Kombat doesn't do that. So if you look at Mortal Kombat 1 and Tekken 8, and that's even me not going in depth, Tekken 8 completely blows it out of the water. Your only real gripe with Tekken 8 is its character endings, and you can have that gripe. That's a very subjective thing, but this video, as far as I'm concerned, was just a rant against Tekken 8. It was not a Mortal Kombat 1 versus Tekken 8 video. It was a lot of cope as far as I can see, and I hate to say that, but that's just my take on it. Guys, I want to know what you guys think. Do you think TrueUnderDawgGaming was making a fair assessment of Tekken versus Mortal Kombat, or do you think he was just riding for Mortal Kombat? Because in my opinion, like I say, I'm always honest with you guys, it sounded like he was riding for a game that nobody likes anymore in Mortal Kombat 1. Anyways guys, thank you for watching the video. I'll be back with more soon. Take care and have a good day.